Church. Welcome to another faith-free family moment. It's good to be again here with you. We've talked last couple of days about trials, and certainly right now, what all of us are facing is just trials. The restrictions placed upon us, whether you agree with them or not, they're there and they're appropriate, I believe, most of them. But they have created tension. They've created major adjustments in our life, and probably often viewed by many as trials. We talked a couple of days ago that the question isn't whether we'll face trials, it's whether we'll face them in a healthy way. And we talked yesterday about one of the ways we face them in a healthy way is to not ignore our questions, but to face them, to take them before the Lord and not let them lie dormant. And so questions we take to the Lord, but I'm also convinced that we don't do a really good job of drawing upon strength from God in the midst of the trials. And the question would be, how do you do that? Listen to the psalmist. I read Psalm 13 yesterday. Remember I read all the questions, how long David just questioned God over and over. Listen to how he ended the psalm. It's very intentional. But, in other words, by contrast to all the questions, I've trusted in your loving kindness. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. Listen to other scripture that testifies to this very thing. We read in Psalm 17:7, the psalmist says, "Show me the wonders of your great love, you who save by your right hand, those who take refuge in you from their foes." Psalm 26:3, "For I have always been mindful of your unfailing love and have lived in reliance on your faithfulness." Psalm 63:3, "Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you." Psalm 108:4, "Great is your love, it's higher than the heavens." Lamentations 3:22 through 23, "Because of the Lord's great love, we're not consumed, for his compassions never fail. Great is your faithfulness." Man, it's hard. It's hard not to miss, isn't it? Those words, is great in his unfailing love. God's great in unfailing love. It's what we need to draw upon. It's what David did. You see, the despair in Psalm 13:3 and 4 reads like the end of the psalmist's story until we get to verse 5 and 6. It seems like he's losing his footing in his journey. But then he remembers something. He intentionally recalls something, and it's critical. God's unfailing love. God's unfailing love. The Hebrew word emphasizes God's initiating and sustaining love. It emphasizes God's love and mercy over generations in spite of how wayward those objects of his love were and are. A nurse accompanied me to a room many years ago and updated information and medications. This was before when I was in the process of trying to figure out, the doctors were, why my immune system was failing. And as she made small talk, she expressed to her regrets over the news that I had leukemia. One problem, I didn't know that. Nobody told me that. And I remember sitting there, hearing that word leukemia and knowing it's a serious word. But I also remember vividly in that moment, it was in my spirit audibly. And what the Spirit of God said to me in that moment, because God met me there. He said, "Matt, you're in the safest place you could ever be. You're in my hands." I'll never forget that. What was God doing? He was reminding me of his unfailing love. He was reminding me of his mercy and his great love. He was reaffirming and setting my heart at peace with the reminder that he's ever constant, he's unchanging, that he's not going to leave me, and that there's no safer place than in the hands of a loving, kind, and gracious God. That's where we find strength for the journey. It's God's unfailing love that really is the belt around our waist, that when our foot is slipping, it's that belt that holds us from falling. It's his unfailing love. It's his unfailing love that comes and brings reassurance and confidence even when our feet slip and stumble. When we forget he's there, he's faithful to love us. He's faithful to care. I don't know where you are in your journey, I don't know how abandoned you may feel or how disoriented you are. I don't know the cold winds of doubt, criticisms that are blowing your way. I don't know that. I do know this. God's unfailing love is there. And he calls you to remember it, because in the midst of all the questions, in the midst of all the disorientation, confusion, and pain of the trials, it's God's unfailing love that brings you and I strength. Continue to draw upon that unfailing love. Ask him to show it to you. He will in a greater way. He longs to. Have a great day, everybody. God's blessing to you.